name is Layla Colon. I am junior staff and part of the Staten Island Urban Center. So for our projects, we have actual pictures that we took outside in our environment to show like drugs and alcohol in our community and how it's catering to young people. For the SIUC, we decided to try to make it like a positive look on it. So for this, I decided to come up with the Diary of a Wimpy Addict. So obviously the Zaw Touch, it's weed, it's drugs, it is what it is. But it's actually really cute. And it's just to portray like how easy it is to be handed to a kid, how fast they can just learn something, because little bags of weed have The Simpsons or Sonic on it. And although those are not always catered to children and they are also for adults, who's gonna really look at the cartoons more? So I did that. And then this one, I was doing this a couple months ago and I never finished it. So this is Sweet Escape and it's pills, and it was like, I did it when I was in a dark place, and painting kind of like, it didn't get me out of it, but it got me through it. So I painted this. We went around to like the waterfront over by Lions Pool, and the amount of vials and needles we just saw laced around. And I have a picture which you'll see, you can see the blood in it. And that's just, and it's fresh, which is crazy in itself. It just shows that it's literally all around us, and we're in the vicinity of how many schools? Many elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. We are literally surrounded by them, and it is all over the place, and that's all we see. So that shows that. There's also, I have one of cigarettes, and although this isn't about tobacco or nicotine, that's still something that's very addictive, and a lot of kids are getting into it because of vapes, and vapes are flavored, and they're this and they're that, and they're not as harmful, but so many 16-year-olds are now having issues with their lungs because they can't. And thanks for checking out Photovoice!
My name is Aven, and I'm an intern at the Staten Island Urban Center. Me, my brother and sister, also David, caught inspiration from Layla with the Diary of a Wimpy Addict. So I just got done watching the new Spider-Man movie and thought to myself, what would be a good title? And I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm like, yo guys, what about Spider-Man Far Away from Drugs? And they're like, you know what, that actually kind of has a ring to it. And then it just went from there. Yeah, so that's how it's going now. Those photos mean to me is basically, like as I said, we use Spider-Man, so it's more youth targeted. So basically what we're trying to say is keep away from the bad things, you know what I'm saying? And not to do any drugs. There was alcohol bottles, there were syringes that people used to inject each other with, like to share needles. We seen a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Like, I'm not gonna lie, we seen lighters, we seen like the packies of the weed. I was just very like shocked because I didn't think that we really had syringe use on Staten Island, if that makes sense, because that was my first time ever actually seeing one on the ground live with blood in it too. It was kind of creepy.
Do you feel like we should be addressing kids, or there needs to be something or someone addressing kids about drugs?
Yeah, we have to make, I believe we have to make a program that helps our youth a lot, like men and women, because this month is June and basically you're supposed to recognize it as men's mental health. Not a lot of people do that, and I want to bring awareness to that because through 2001 and 2020, I believe it was 71.3% male suicide rates, and 30% was the other was female. And I feel like that's something that we could really work on inside of our community. Our morality rates is that it's a little bit too high. You know, people are taking their lives at such young ages and they don't get to experience their life to begin with. And that's where, you know what I'm saying, drugs come in too, because that also can affect you from the path that you wanted to take or you want to go.
Do you feel like drugs or alcohol could take part in causing someone's death or be the reason why the average rate of men dying or suicide is so high?
Inevitably. Thanks for tuning in to our exhibit, Photovoice.
I'm Jameer. I'm 14. I go to Port Richmond and I work at the Staten Island Urban Center.
I'm Jamira. I'm 14 as well. I go to Port Richmond too, and I also happen to work here. Personally, I enjoy doing the Photovoice because like when you look around and walk around,
you could really like notice and see how many people smoke cigarettes and drink beer daily, and like thoroughly notice how it affects the world and their human health as well. So like not only does it trash the environment, you're trashing your own health.
Right. Personally, they don't mean anything to me, but for other people, they might mean something else. Like, for example, youth.
So like for example, I feel like the photos will mean to youth because the project I did is Spider-Man Far Away from Drugs. So I feel like if for a younger audience, if Spider-Man was to tell those kids not to do drugs, I feel like they'll listen to Spider-Man instead of their own parents and not do drugs, which is probably reasonable for younger children because they probably look up to that superhero. We maybe came up with a theme because one of my peers made the Diary of a Wimpy Addict, which is fire. So like, I just thought, and I was watching a new Spider-Man movie, so I thought of Spider-Man Far From Drugs. I was like, why not? And yeah, it just came about that. So I feel like maybe like questions it could bring up to the youth is maybe like, what is that? Like, cause you know, they might not know what that can is, but you know, it's some type of alcohol or like some type of drug usage or something like that. Or like they might not know what like a cigarette does in the long run to your health or body, or either or something of that sort, honestly.
Thank you guys.
These photos remind me of the cultural roots of New York City. New York City was built off of people doing graffiti in things like subways. It's a huge part of our culture, and it spread throughout all the world. And it did, I'm not gonna say it started in New York City, but it's definitely a very prevalent thing here. And it just reminded me of the roots, and I'm a New Yorker at heart, forever and always. These topics bring up the thought of substance use, and more specifically things like weed and alcohol, because down here on both of my photos you could see bottle cans and things like that. And when I went to this building, it was an abandoned building, you noticed a lot of like cigarette butts, a lot of just like old like roaches from joints and things like that. So like, obviously people are camping out here, and it kind of just shows the correlation between like marijuana use and graffiti, because this place is all graffitied up. And I'm sure most of these people going to this abandoned house in the middle of the beach aren't sober while doing it. So that's evident through the surroundings.
So I have multiple photos, but this is just the one that I have in hand right now. And I would say that this photo means to me, it's more so how I don't like the fact that you can just walk down the street and you can see a bottle cap, or you can see a broken bottle or a vape or cigarettes on the floor. People treat the world like a trash can, but it's our home, and we should be treating it like it's our home. And I think it brings up the topic that, you know, in order to take care of the world, we need to take care of ourselves. So people need to understand that, you know, alcohol, it's not good for you. Like all these drugs are not good for you. I'm not saying you can't take it, everything in moderation. But at the end of the day, like, you don't have to throw it on the floor. You don't have to leave behind what you're doing. Like, I don't understand why you're throwing it on the floor. Like, you seriously need to take care of the earth, because the earth is slowly dying year after year after year. And people say they care, and then they go and they throw a cigarette on the floor. So it's like you can't say one thing and then contradict yourself with your actions.
You absolutely brought up great points about contradicting yourselves. A lot of the time people under the influence disrespect the area that they're staying because it's public, right? But like, if you're gonna be staying there, keep it clean for yourself. Keep it clean for the earth, but for yourself as well. Like, if keep the area you're living in, you don't want it to be scattered with alcohol bottles, cigarette roaches, things like that. And it's only being like a bigger contributor to like global warming as we have like more spots like that.
You know, like when you see trash and you see vines all around it and stuff like that, like that's what I was trying to portray with my art, and how like we technically. So my project is basically about how the earth tries to take back the earth and tries to revert the damage that humans have done to it. So all the trash that people throw on the floor and stuff like that, you usually see vines and trees and stuff taking it up and like covering it, trying to fix the earth and make it healthy. Like for instance, during coronavirus, that was one of the times where the earth was actually healing and stuff was becoming healthy because people weren't outside as much and they weren't destroying it. They weren't making fires and cutting down a lot of trees because everybody was inside, so the earth actually had time to rebuild itself. And ever since the pandemic ended, people have went back to their ways, creating more trash. And like I have this demonstration that shows a bunch of bottles basically on the floor, and the grass is technically weed, and it's taking it back. The rain is washing it away, trying to cover it up and heal itself.
Period.
I thought yours was very informative, and you just made a great metaphor. I was out to eat with my family for Father's Day, and it was literally right next to the restaurant we were eating at. It was the restaurant, and then there was a smoothie bowl place, and then there was a picture that I'm looking at that you cannot see because my phone is highly broken, but Shani will pull it up here. What I noticed first about this photo is that it's really bright, and typically younger people are attracted to brighter colors, or people in general are attracted to brighter colors, and you'll see on the picture here that it's a lot of tie-dye, spiral print things, a lot of colors that would kind of glow under black light. Additionally, there's a chip called Takis that are very popular. They have those chips, but the newer version of them in that store, which should also attract younger people because they're oh my god, I want Takis. In general, I have other photos as well, the bags that I found scattered everywhere. It's just crazy how with Simi, what she was saying, how people just throw everything anywhere, and it's crazy how you can just be going on your way home from school, or you can be with your family member who's 10 years old, and you can just see that thrown on the floor in multiple different places on the same block. What I'm working on right now is the reimagined part of it, so I just use a whole box of scrapbooking things, and I just cut it out to with beer bottles. And then to kind of go with the smoking part, or the part related to cannabis, I have clouds from the same thing, and it's somebody kind of thinking wow, what's happening here? And there's also a picture of a forest fire, I believe, or something happening that I cut up. Photovoice.
To lure young kids in, because I know too, there's places right by my school, or even just right by the train station. Oh, it's a convenience store, until it says right on the top, King Smoke. The only thing that you see is Bud Light bottles or NES sign. But it has talkings, oh, it has gummy bears, oh, it has this, it has that, things that kids want, things that kids eat. But then it also has vape sticks, it also has cigarettes, and it's false advertisement, and they want you to go into the store because they know that you're an easy target.
Yeah, but who's to say an adult doesn't eat something?
That's true. So
And it also depends on the narrative that we're trying to achieve with the project.
Yeah.
But I think in a sense, it's that's the whole point, of these stores, especially if they sell those things, they're trying to lure people in.
Yeah,
even
regardless
with
of
literally
age.
anything in this world,
Yeah.
their only goal is to make more money off people.
Taste crabs.
Oh,